Good evening, everybody, and welcome. We apologize for the delay. Our council member, Ms. Cynthia Carrasco, will be taken to the hospital, so we were delayed with her, making sure she got into the ambulance safely. So the time is now 6:41, and this meeting is now in session. We'll start with our invocation by Pastor Matt Moreno with BT Church, followed by Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Crisp, if you will.
Let's pray. God, we just thank you, first and foremost, for you, God, and your Son, Jesus. I pray that we would stop during this season and remember the true meaning behind Christmas, and that's you sending your Son to die for each and every one of us. God, right now we just want to lift up Council Member Cynthia to you. God, I pray that you would be with her. You would be with the paramedics on their way, taking her to the hospital, and the doctors when she gets there. God, I pray that your healing hand would be on her. God, that this would be nothing severe, nothing that doctors can't treat. God, I pray that you would just be with her. God, continue to lead and guide her. God, I ask that you would put your healing hand on her during this time. God, I pray that your presence would be known here in today's meeting. God, I pray that every decision that is made as one unit here. God, I pray that we would continue to push the city forward into greater and bigger things here in Alice. God, I'm thankful for the mayor and each council member and every city staff member, God, that has served during this time. God, I pray that we would never take our positions lightly, but that we would serve them with integrity, God, and constantly looking and making decisions based on where you want us to take the city forward. God, we pray for the great city of Alice, Texas. God, we pray that your hand would continue to bless this place, continue to help us move forward. Lord, we thank you, and this is Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 Amen. Please face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, citizen comments and public announcements. And it doesn't look like we have citizen comments. Mr. Burke, do you have any announcements?
The only thing, since this is our last meeting before Christmas, to wish prayerful blessings and joy and peace to each and every family and household within our city, and may the new year be bright and wonderful for all.
Thank you. Mr. Crisp?
I'm basically the same thing, just a Merry Christmas to all. Be sure to travel safe. There's a lot of things going on out there. Keep Ms. Carrasco and others in your prayers, and may you have a blessed holiday season of Christmas and New Year's.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp. Mr. Molina?
The same sentiment. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Stay safe, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Molina. And I would just like to say we do have good news in the building today. Mr. David Whitley, appointed as Secretary of State, our very own from Alice, Texas. As always, I always brag on our people. We have great citizens. We have great people. We have great students being raised in our schools. And this is proof. He's not the only one. We had our Nobel Peace Prize winner as well, Mr. Allison, and you know the list goes on. We have another Nobel Peace Prize winner, and as always, things like this, we need to remember in the time of believing, the season of believing, this truly is believing that we have amazing people, and the city of Alice is a fabulous city. Merry Christmas to all of you, and without further ado, agenda item number 3. Discuss Texas Water Development Board Supplemental Water Resource Project.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to just give you guys an update on where we are in the Water Development Board, the Water Resource Project, and the loan that we had applied for before, and kind of go through a run-through so we can see where we are and some of the differences in numbers that the consultant had and from our finance staff has. But first, I'll start with you. If you recall, we submitted the application, or they invited us to apply, submitted the application for $5.5 million. That does have a partial loan forgiveness of about $1.4 million. Most recently, they asked us a series of questions about the project that we answered, and everything looks like it's on schedule. We know that this project, in order to get a uninterrupted water supply, it's of course more than $5.5 million. The estimate from the engineer to get 3 million gallons a day of water is about $17 million. And so when we talked about it before, this 5.5 has partial loan forgiveness. In a year, we'll be looking to, if everything goes as planned, we'll be looking to ask for another Texas Water Development loan in about the $11.5 million range, which hopefully will also have some partial loan forgiveness. This particular loan will be closing in late to mid-summer. Now, the way this project works is, right now, just for the public to know, we're on surface water. So we get our water from Lake Finley through Lake Corpus Christi. So we're kind of dependent on Lake Corpus Christi for our water supply. And so we can pump as much as we need as long as they have it and at the price that they determine. It's a old agreement that we've had. It's a 50-year agreement. The Alice Water Authority, which started in the 60s, got this agreement together. At the time, that was the best thing to do for the city. We were on about 21 wells throughout the city. They weren't, the quality of water wasn't that great, so we were, built our water treatment plant. That came online in, I believe, 1964, Demetrio? Right. Have the capability of treating 12 million gallons a day. Our average is about 3.5 million gallons a day. And at peak, sometimes we do, in the summers, go to about 4.2 million gallons a day. We hover sometimes at the 3, or even sometimes a little below in the winter months. And so we're looking for, and what you guys approved is an uninterrupted water supply. And so for us to get that, we have to dig a little bit deeper than the wells in the area. The wells in the area are in some people call the Goliath Sands. It's the Evangeline Aquifer. And so roughly, I guess it could be anywhere from in the 300 to 400 feet range where a lot of the wells are. And the quality varies in different areas. For us to be in the Jasper well, we're going to be about 2,000 feet deep, and that water has a little bit more total dissolved solids. And the engineers and the geologists are thinking that it's going to be in the 3,000 parts per million of total dissolved solids. So brackish water, a little bit salty. If anybody has a saltwater pool, that's about as salty as it is, not like ocean water, which I believe is like 35,000 parts per million, something like that. So to get there, we have to have a desal plant that takes the total dissolved solids out to about 1,000 parts per million through the process of reverse osmosis. So that's where we are right now, and that's where we're wanting to be. And so we're thinking that our estimate for the test well is going to be about $1.4 million. So that's the actual gamble that we take. Now the gamble it doesn't have a lot of risk because we have a very reputable engineer and water hydrologist, and they have a pretty good idea of what's down there and what it is, but there's still a risk. But when you think about what we're getting a loan for $5.5 million, has a partial loan forgiveness of 1.4. So in a way, we're getting that test well done at the expense of the Texas Water Development Board. It's going to be loan forgiveness. If it doesn't have what we think it has, let's say, for example, it happens to be a pocket where it is, higher than the 3,000 pp parts per million, then we could stop the project. We still have $4.1 million of loan money that we can apply toward other water projects. So it is a pretty good risk. It's not a high risk for us. And so that's why, all this time we decided to move forward. And this is more for the public because you guys have been approving this as we go. So where we are, the engineer and the study that was done a few years ago, their estimate is that doing the RO project, keeping our surface water plant to minimum capacity, or maybe let's say 500,000 gallons a day or so, something in that range, they think we'll actually not spend any more money. From our standpoint and from finance, we're thinking that maybe we will have to spend more money. So We've had talks with our consultant, and they're pretty clear that it's probably not going to cost you more money, but if you want to be extra conservative, then you can think maybe it will. And what we were figuring is it could, in about 3 years, be another $600,000 a year that we would have to pay. And where do we get that money? Right now, we're not budgeting an extra $600,000 a year. That could come in the form of either a rate increase, and if we look at a rate increase, that would be to meet that $600,000 a year, could be about $6 per customer per month. Covers that water. Now, what does that get you? If it ends up being that high, that is, in a way, your insurance for uninterrupted water, because that's what keeps our current plant almost alive running. So it's not just extra money, but you're getting something for it. You're getting a secondary source of water, which would actually be our surface water. Some of the things to consider, if we're looking at, we budget $1.7 million a year in water purchases, and we lose a lot of that to evaporation. And so if we drop those purchases by 80%, now you lose, you're only talking about, right now we're doing 40 or so percent of $1.7 million is what we're kind of wasting just because of the way the system works with evaporation. If we drop down to water purchases of $200,000, now we're only losing 40% of $200,000. So we mitigate that evaporation problem just by purchasing less water. But the other thing that happens when we have a 3 million gallons a day of production from an RO plant is our triggers on when we pump change. Right now, Demetrio, at what level do you start pumping? How many feet?
191.
Okay, so we're just going by feet when we pump now, but we're also drawing 3.5 million gallons a day on average from Lake Finley. So we have to pump more. If we're only drawing 500,000 gallons a day, that threshold is going to be lower now. So that's also is going to help. When we say we're not going to spend $1.7 million in water purchases, it shows you we're going to have to pump less, so we rely less on Lake Corpus Christi for that. All these things just being said and done, so you guys can know that there is a chance in 2 years that we may have to spend an extra $600,000. Now, what we're going to do from here till in the next 30 days is get finance together with our engineer and see where are we off on the $600,000. Part of it is we do add additional labor costs for an RO plant. Our study did not add labor costs, but I did get confirmation from the consultant Norris Leal that the plant in North Alamo in the Valley, they have 6 plants similar to what we're trying to do one of, and they have, I believe, 1 person operating 6 plants. It's a very different process than how we treat water right now. Our water treatment is labor intensive. It's surface water. There's a lot of moving parts to it. In the RO process, you're just pushing water really through membranes to get the total dissolved solids out, the salt out. And so we could monitor that from our current plant. And that's why they don't have staffing costs. We also have a lot of, which we may not have figured here, you do have, if you're going to drop your pumping by 80% or so, your pumping costs, electricity, are going to go down as well. So the long and short is we hope that our estimate of $600,000 is going to come closer to the zero once we get together with our consultant and find out why are our numbers off, and get a better idea from, we haven't run an RO plant. But we're also talking to the people that have to get a real tight idea on what their numbers are. But it's not, in the grand scheme of things, to get 3 million gallons of water a day and have that uninterrupted water supply. The $600,000 a year makes us drought proof, having that well water. The Water Authority, we met last week. We came up with these numbers. They understand them. they wanted to make sure also that everybody's on the same page. They were the lead in this project, but they don't have the ability to borrow funds because they don't have the income like the city does. So they have limited ability on financing ability. So they wanted to make sure that you guys were on the same page with them, and so we had the same discussion at the Water Authority. That's pretty much where we are on this. Oh, if everything goes as planned, we will be here about same time next year, Barbara?
Right. We'll be working with Norris Leal to submit another project information form for phase 2. And that project information form, or PIF, will be due the very first part of March of 2019. And that gets the project into the Texas Water Development Board system. It's evaluated along with all other projects, and then Texas Water Development Board puts all those projects in an intended use plan that's published in the summer. We'll be able to see where we rank, and then first round of invitations to apply will be sent out generally in September. And so we're hopeful that we'll get another invitation to apply. So we'd be back about the same time talking about a second application that's already been submitted.
Yeah, and thank you, Barbara. And these Water Development Board applications, they do take a long time. And the Water Development Board really reviews them. But from a staff level, it's, you know, a meeting after meeting and information. And Barbara has kind of takes the lead on that and gets with the Metro, gets with engineering, gets with finance, and so those meetings typically are Roland, Vanessa, Joe, Demetrio, and Barbara, and I'll try to make at least 50% of those meetings, but there's a lot of time that goes into it. So our staff does a tremendous job getting these things done and getting them out the door, and we're doing them fast. It seems like it takes a long time, but the information they need, you send it to them and they send it back and they say, what about this, what about that? We have a conference call with the engineer, a conference call with the water person, conference call with a financial advisor, and so there's a lot of moving parts. And when you look at it here, it's like, yeah, it's an agenda item, but a lot of things go into it. So really, thank you to our staff for getting all this done. But that's where we are. I wanted to let you know that there could be a potential for additional money out of the budget in fiscal year probably 2021, maybe 2022, depending on when it closes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Esparza. Mr. Molina, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Crisp?
No, I think we're good for now.
Mr. Burke?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Esparza. Agenda item number 4. Regularly scheduled meeting dates for calendar year 2019. Mr. Esparza?
Yeah, as we worked on these last 3 months, we ended up having one meeting a month, which actually works pretty well. Our charter calls for at least one meeting a month. And I'm not sure when they decided that 2 would happen, but like with a lot of things, it could have been something as simple as we'll have 2, because if we have 2 meetings, we'll always have that one. And so you have a meeting in the beginning that's kind of not a whole lot of things, and a meeting at the end. From a staffing standpoint, we spend sometimes a week, preparing for the meeting, having the meeting, a few days to try to do what we're told from the meeting, and then what do you know? Okay, let's prepare for the next meeting, and it takes up a lot of time. And from our standpoint, it's almost the same time. If we're going to have 12 items on the agenda and then 7 on another one, let's have 20 on one and maybe have a little bit longer meeting sometimes. And so for us, it's almost the same amount of time, same amount of work. So we're recommending, and if you guys would like, the 3rd Tuesday of the month to be the regularly scheduled meeting. I think that works, where if we don't have a quorum and we want to make a meeting that month, we still have all the rest of those days to post another couple of meetings to make that meeting. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay. Mr. Burke?
Oh,
No, I don't have any objections.
Okay, Mr. Crisp?
This is something that we've been talking about for a while. I think you and I have had discussions about it too. I think that this is a good deal, so we can actually let them work
Yeah.
as opposed to plan. So
Yeah.
I think this is a great thing. This is the regularly scheduled meetings. Of course, we would be open for any special meetings. Of course, come January, February, March, we'll have to, somewhere in there, we'll have to have the meetings in regards to the elections.
Right.
In May, we're obviously going to have special meetings. June, July, August, September,
Right.
we'll still have special meetings. And anytime we have a public hearing, those probably, they're more
When
than
we
likely.
need 'em?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we need to, we can have the special meetings as well.
And in the January meeting, I'll bring you guys the budget meeting that we're required to have, and also the special meeting. So I know that, and we'll get to it on the next one, where there's a January. I think we have a January meeting that on the election calendar. So we have to have a meeting so we can call for the election, and that'll be on the special calendar that we'll have. A meeting after the election. We're required to have a meeting so many days to canvass so many days after. And we get to the budget, we have the adoption of the budget on September the 15th, and so those are going to be in another calendar item brought for you guys in January, and on that one it'll just be a combined. And so some of these we may be able to double up, but also for the budget meetings, we'll be able to, August will be more than one meeting. We'll probably have 3 in August, and September maybe 2. And we may have an extra one in July. So those are going to be a little bit heavier. But if we have the calendar ahead of time and get it all set, then we know when we need a schedule, and we know when people need to be offered, people want to attend. We'll have this posted on our website, and everybody will know when the meetings are.
Yeah. Mr. Crisp, anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Molina?
Questions?
And I think it's great. I think staff can get work done and gives them that time to follow through with what's,
Yeah.
and not get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the scheduled meetings to be set for the third Tuesday of every month for the calendar year of 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated. Thank you, council. Number 5, consider and act upon approval of city council minutes for the November 20th, 2018 city council meeting.
I had no changes.
Council, any changes or concerns in the minutes?
No.
No? Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time
I
to
move for
accept.
approval of the city council minutes for the November 20th, 2018 city council meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated. Minutes approved. Agenda item number 6, adopt 2019 election calendar as applicable to the City of Dallas general election.
Okay, Mayor, what we included for you guys is the straight from the Secretary of State, the election calendar. Some of these dates are not for us, but what we're doing, you get a handout. This handout also.
Yes.
Okay. These are the ones that they're pulled from here, and those apply to us. Some of those apply to different cities. So what I was wanting to cover, make sure that it's all covered, is on a motion to be adopted as applicable to our city. That way, our city clerks will be meeting with the elections coordinator and getting all the exact dates pulled out of there. We know which ones they are based on here, but there's some dates that call for when we have to call for the election and when we have to name the polling places and things of that sort. And one of those will be in the January, one of those items. But we're just asking to go ahead and adopt the election calendar as it relates to our city.
Okay. Mr. Molina, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Crisp?
And we did meet the Monday deadline?
Yes, we on Friday, we posted the notice of deadline to file applications for a place on the ballot, and that was done on
Friday
Friday.
at 5.
Yeah,
it.
December the
We're good
14th.
there.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, Mr. Burke?
No question.
All right, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the adoption of the election calendar for the city's general election on May 4th, 2019, as adaptable and fitting for our city election.
As
We have to
presented.
comply, we have to comply with the election code, but as Michael said, you pulled this straight off of the
Right.
Secretary of State's office, so
Mhm.
it applies to us.
Okay, all
So
right.
I don't even think you have to put that proviso on
Okay.
there. We have to
Okay.
follow
All right,
it.
then I would,
I think you got it.
okay.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion stands as stated and clarified. Agenda item number 7, consider and act upon adopting a resolution authorizing the submittal of Homeland Security Program grant applications for 1, replace and enhance equipment for Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team, Phase 2. Number 2, securing critical infrastructure. Number 3, regional response equipment, ASE. Number 4, PPO for LEO. And 5, regional response vehicle. And designating the city manager as the city's authorized official with the authority to apply for, accept, reject, alter, or terminate a grant on behalf of the city, providing assurance that in the event of loss or misuse of grant funds, that the city will return all funds to the office of the governor.
Mayor Barbara Reeves, our grant administrator, will present this item.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In anticipation of the State Homeland Security Program 2019 funding cycle opening, staff has begun discussing possible projects to submit for consideration. The purchase of a vehicle and/or trailer to hazmat equipment and communications equipment, the purchase of camera systems, locks, and fencing to secure our water treatment plant, both our wastewater treatment plants, Lake Finley Pump Station, and our service center. The purchase of regional response equipment for our police department, the purchase of personal protective equipment for our police department, and the purchase of a regional response vehicle for our SWAT unit. The state anticipates opening the funding cycle December 21st. When the cycle opens, we'll know then when the application deadline is. In past cycles, they've been due in February. There is no required match, and this is a reimbursement grant program. If grant funds are awarded and don't cover the entire project cost, we'll have to revise the project scope as well as the project budget. At this time, we don't have a lot of details about the projects because we've just begun discussing them, but team members are getting quotes on the different items.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara. Mr. Burke, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Mr. Chris?
So it opens up on the 21st, but you're just now getting, I mean, obviously, you're trying to figure out what we need to do.
Right.
So we
start-
anticipate actually applying in January before the February deadline? Because last time we were pushing right up on it, if I'm not mistaken, because of the special election and stuff like that, weren't we?
In the past, the deadline's been in February, but the COG has a January deadline to review the applications because there are two categories of Homeland Security. One's the regular and one's LATPA law enforcement. So the COG likes to review and see which category you fit in. So adjustments can be made. So that was the January.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry
yes.
for making you repeat part of that, I just
No,
misunderstood
no,
everything.
no
So,
problem.
okay. Okay.
So we're anticipating the similar deadline this funding cycle. They were supposed to open the funding cycle last Friday, but the state notified the COG that they were going to delay it. And so hopefully it'll be this week. And then we can actually start an application and start answering the questions and responding to all the data that has to be inputted. So,
The next question goes to Mr. John over here. When we place this motion, do we have to break it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or can we do it all as a single motion across the board? Not 6.
I'd say you could do it as a single motion across the board because that's the way the agenda item was presented.
Okay.
You could do it either way, but you could go ahead and do it.
I just want to get ahead of the curve on that, so that would really.
got you
Okay, I'm done.
Gotcha. Okay, Mr. Molina?
No questions.
Okay. So just to clarify, Ms. Barbara, the deadline, we won't get it till December 21st.
Well, we won't know the actual application deadline until the funding cycle opens, so hopefully it'll open the 21st so we know
Right.
what our timeline is.
But that's why staff is already working on it, so
Right.
that when we're ready to rock, it's
Yeah.
good,
And-
ready to
and-
submit.
And fiscal impact?
There's no match required, but again, we try to develop scalable projects, so if we're awarded funds that do not cover the entire project cost, we could scale it back.
Right.
We may have a little challenge here because we have a vehicle. I don't know if that could be scaled back, the SWAT vehicle, but we'll do our best to respond to that if we're faced with that challenge.
And if this was if it did have, we wouldn't have it on the agenda if it had a big fiscal impact because we would want to know before. Here we know that it's going to come out. We want to get approval. There's not a fiscal impact. We're good with it.
Right.
But for example, if it was a $400,000 project with with 25% match, well then we would wait. And as soon as it came out, we would look at it. That would be one that we may want to have one of those special meetings where we would call a one agenda item and call you guys in and discuss it. But here we're comfortable with having this ahead of time.
Okay. Okay, council, if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion adopting a resolution authorizing the submittal of Homeland Security Program grant applications. 1, replace and enhance equipment for Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team, Phase 2. Number 2, securing, hold on one second, critical infrastructure. Number 3, regional response equipment, ASE. Number 4, PPO for LEO. And number 5, regional response vehicle. And designating the city manager as the city's authorizing official with the authority to apply for, accept, reject, alter, or terminate a grant on behalf of the city.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Reeves. Okay, agenda item number 9, consider and act upon awarding contract for chemicals for water and wastewater treatment plants. Did I skip? Skipped one?
We can go back to it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
7, 8.
8.
Sorry. Can I scratch 9 and go to 8, or should I do 9 and then we
Do it 8.
go back to 8? Okay, I apologize for that. Let me get my cough out of the way. Sorry. Agenda item number 8, consider and act upon an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Alice, Texas, authorizing the sale of real property, more particularly described as a middle third of lots 7, 8, and 9, Farm Block 135C, City of Alice, County of Jim Wells, State of Texas, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all documents relating thereto, providing a savings clause, a severability clause, and an effective date.
Mayor, Joe Salisbury with our engineering tech will present this item.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening,
evening.
Mayor and
Good evening,
Council. At our October 23rd council meeting, council authorized staff to publish a notice to bidders for sealed bids for the property. Notice was published in the Alice Echo on October 28th and on November 4th. The deadline for submissions of bids was November the 20th. We received one bid for $2,000. A copy of that bid is included in your packet. The appraisal district appraised value of the property is $1,750. The staff recommendation is to authorize the sale of the property for $2,000.
We believe the adjoining neighbor is who bid this, who was the sole bid on this property.
Council, any questions? Mr. Molina?
No questions.
Mr. Chris?
Nope.
Mr. Burke?
No.
I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion to adopt an ordinance for the city council of the city of Alice, Texas, authorizing the sale of real property, more particularly described as the middle 1/3 of lots 7, 8, and 9, farm block 135C, city of Alice, county of Jim Wells, state of Texas, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all documents related thereto.
I'll second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, agenda item number 9. Consider and act upon awarding contract for chemicals for water and wastewater treatment plants.
Mayor, Demetrio Durante is going to present this item.
Mayor, council, city staff, good evening, and please bear with me. I'm a little bit hoarse this evening. December the 11th, the city of Alice received sealed chemical bids on 5 of the 10 chemicals that are used for water and wastewater treatment for calendar year 2019. In your package, you should have the tabulation sheet on those 5 chemicals. Those chemicals are items number 5, liquid caustic, item 6, chlorine, item 8, polymer, item 9, sulfur dioxide, and item 10, sodium chloride. I can tell you that, as always, packets were mailed out to those vendors that are on our list. We did the advertisement for those that were interested but were not on the list. We reached out to those folks as well. Those were received or read out loud on the 11th. Looking at those items that they were scheduled for bidding, all of them did show an increase on cost. And I will start one by one, and I'll start with the caustic. The caustic is up 23 cents per gallon versus last year. That's an increase. We order that in 4,000-gallon loads. That's an increase of $920 a load. We average about 14 loads a year, so that increase is approximately $12,880. On item number 6 for the chlorine gas, we order those in ton cylinders between water and wastewater plant. That's an increase of $21, $105 a load. We average about 99 tons a year, so an increase of approximately $2,079 on that item. The third item, which is item number 8, which is polymer, it's an increase of 86 cents. A 4,000-gallon load is an increase of 3,440. We average 2 loads a year, so that increase is 6,880. For the sulfur dioxide, that's only used at wastewater. That's also in a gas form, a gas state. The increase is $35 a ton. They order 4 tons per order. That's a $140 increase per load. They average about 32 tons a year. That's an increase of $1,120 on that one item. Now, on the sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, there's 2 options that can be bid on. Option A is just for the product. Option B is for the product and the service of the generator. Option A came in for 1 year at $6.20, for 2 years at $6.50. Option B, which includes the service with the product, is for 1 year, $9.19 a gallon. For 2 years, $9.47 a gallon. When you look at option B, which includes the service, for 1 year, a load was going to cost $18,380. That's a 60-cent increase per gallon. Per load, we only order in 2,000-gallon quantities. That's $1,200 more a load. We average 5 loads a year, so that increase is $6,000 on that one product. For 2 years, a 2,000-gallon load would be $18,940, an increase of 88 cents per gallon. The increase on the load is $1,760. Average 5 loads a year, we're looking at an increase of $8,800 on that item. Go back a little bit. Everybody that's interested in supplying a bid has the option of doing a 1 or a 2-year bid. A lot of the items that were bid out this year, a lot of the suppliers just went with the 1-year bid option, other than Fort Bend Services. They submitted a 1-year and a 2-year, but the cost was the same at $3.47. To go back to the sodium chloride, just to go and explain a little bit about the service consists of several components that they supply for us. Besides the product, they do efficiency tests on the generator once a month. They collect samples once a month, and they also FedEx those out. They also replace or repair any minor parts. The major parts is part of our O&M manual that hits our water plant budget. When you take all that into consideration, just the samples and the freight on those samples for a year is $3,960. If we just go with option A, which is the product, the $4,000 has to come from city budget in order to satisfy the complete process of that product and the rule. I don't have nobody in staff that is aware of how to do an efficiency test on that generator. Historically, they've always done it for us. So, not to say that it can't be learned, but I'm not comfortable with it.
How many gallons is that a year?
Gallons a year?
Yeah. Because it's $3 a gallon difference for their
Right.
service.
It's 10,000 gallons a year difference.
So 30,000, we couldn't employ somebody for 30,000 with that expertise. I don't think so.
No, okay. I guess I misunderstood the question. What was that again?
No, I was saying that basically 10,000 gallons a year times that $3 difference for the service fee. We couldn't
Right.
employ somebody with that expertise and the chemicals.
Right. There's a $3 difference between just the product and the service.
So your recommendation is the product and service.
Correct. And the option B, this is one product that does increase and fluctuate quite a bit. I also see that on the 1-year bids, that a core product is not stable as far as the cost. That's why a lot of these folks just go out for that 1-year bid, and because it's constantly going up and down. Yeah. We do receive letters that the product has increased, but since we're under contract, it doesn't affect us. Mm-hmm. But for those that are not under contract, that are on a month-to-month basis, it'll affect them. So my recommendation on the caustic is for 1 year with DPC, on the chlorine 1-year DPC, the polymer 2-year Fort Bend Services, the sulfur dioxide 1-year DPC, and the sodium chloride 2-year with Evoqua.
At the 9.47.
At option
B.
Option B.
Option B. Okay. I just wanted you to say it so that we can. Yeah. That sounds perfect.
What was the polymer, Dimitri?
Fort Bend Services for 2 years. It stayed the same. 1 year, 2 years the same.
And how much did that one go up this year?
86 cents.
Yeah, so staying the same for 2 years is a huge win.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Molina, any questions?
No questions.
Okay,
Thank you,
Mr.
Dimitri.
Chris?
I got mine out. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Burke?
No, thank you.
All right, council, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion to, sorry, 1 second. Let me get it right. Award a contract to chemicals for water and wastewater treatment plants as recommended by city staff.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
Duarte. All right, agenda item number 10, consider and act upon a service agreement for professional services with the Alice Chamber of Commerce to promote the Convention and Visitors Bureau industry and authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute the service agreement.
Mayor, this, if you recall back, August, I believe, we was directed to bring some stuff in-house or renegotiate the contract with Alice Chamber of Commerce to manage the CBB funds. In the process of that, we were trying to get information from their executive director on the financials, on the audits and things of that sort. And we come to find out, we hadn't had audits in a long time. We've actually been budgeting for them, paying them out. We had a meeting with the with the president of the chamber and the executive director and a few other members and our city staff, and realize that we're not getting the information we need, and the accuracy of it just wasn't there. So we got the information back. We're getting it audited. We contracted with Juan Sanchez, who did our audit last year. He went on his own, and we've contracted with him to get started with the audits to get us caught up. There was a thought that it was every 2 years. The contract called for every year. And so I just said, I felt that we couldn't continue the agreement the way we had. We were having them manage the funds, pay for the things that we're supposed to be paid for, and I sent them a letter making a change, but offering them something different, which is pretty much just a professional services agreement to handle what's outlined in the letter. And I'll go through them. And one of it is to be the point of contact for the CVB. These were things that were getting done, but they were paying the bills on these things as well. We want to handle the financial aspect out of here, from our finance department. From administration, we'll probably take care of some of the ads that need to happen and the negotiating, but nevertheless, the professional services that I want to contract with them are going to be the point of contact for the CVB, answer the phones for the CVB, be available for tours to places such as Tejano Roots, South Texas Museum, other tourist destinations, be available to guide conventions, meetings, the Winter Texan events, and other CVB events. Provide us quarterly reports with the website information, hotel stays, mailers, any other relevant CVB information that we need. Design and assist with magazine, billboard, flyers, maps, and other relevant advertising and literature for the CVB. Attend as directed from us CVB related conferences or meetings, and that'll be at the CVB expense, and also housing the CVB Information Center. So the Convention and Visitor Bureau Information Center, it's there right now, and we want them to continue housing that. What I'm thinking of doing is, and I offered them already this, is paying them $1,500 a month for those in a one-year agreement. We don't have the agreement in place. With my, I'm within my authority to have done this already, but I wanted to bring it to you guys because it's something that you guys gave me direction to do, and it's was going to work differently than what we thought. And so this is the essence of what John's going to put together in an agreement form. We still have an audit that the audits need to get done, and we should have those back in a couple of months. But we just kind of weren't comfortable continuing the relationship based on not having the information that we needed in a timely manner. And our finance staff has worked really hard trying to gather information. We've sent the information off to our auditor, but that's where we are. I plan on sending them an agreement here.
We should have an agreement to them before the end of the week for them to look at it. Of course, then their board will have to look at it and get back with us, and then Mike has the ability to negotiate with them.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Molina, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Crisp?
We're still looking to maybe house somebody or reach out to somebody to actually assist with the marketing portion of this, because we have here design and assist in billboards and so forth and so on. That's great because he has point of contacts, but we also need that extended service that the mayor has brought up before, where maybe we reach out a little bit further. Aside from that, I'm comfortable with this. I'm comfortable with you moving forward and continue to negotiate with the chamber, and thank you for bringing this back to us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp. Mr. Burke?
No, I'm comfortable with it, and let us see it moving forward.
Thank you. And I need to reiterate what Mr. Crisp said. I truly feel that marketing, Alice, is an extremely important aspect of being a bigger, better city. And we know we have so much more potential than the capacity that we're at. So I would also like, some kind of thought onto perhaps in-house, having a
Yeah.
person that can actually make that priority.
I think part of the plan is, having the funds that we're not expending out, we'll be able to do that. And long-term, that is something that we need to do, and we're planning for it. We just need to, from a staffing level, figure out where we're gonna house a person. What additional duties would they have? Is it gonna be straight marketing? Are we gonna have to pull some of these away from the CVB contract? Those are going to be decided in the next 4 or 5 or 6 months as we move forward. Give us some time to figure out exactly what we want this person doing, because there's a lot that can be done. We just need to have a good job description and something put together.
Because their contract will be on a contractual type job.
to month.
Like month to month, what they're needed,
Yeah.
not on a year or anything like that, correct?
Yes, and that the city manager has discussed about not having to be a full year contract.
Correct.
And different periods of time that he's thinking about and wants to suggest the Chamber of Commerce. So
Well,
he's
that's
manager.
through the
Perfect.
negotiation process.
Perfect, okay.
And
Absolutely.
I think also that we need to look into, like I said, there's those applications, there's marketing companies that are specifically designed for cities.
Right.
We can reach out in those avenues. There's, like I said before, there's little apps for your phone that are designed for cities that you pay $5,000 for, and you have a city app, and then after that, it's all paid for by people who want to market on there specifically. So there's a lot of avenues that we haven't touched on. I think that by doing this also, since we do have the racks there, they are essentially going to continue to be, a visitors bureau, and we continue to have some kind of a relationship with the chamber, even though they're not going to oversee this one portion of it. And of it is, the finances for the city and the marketing for the city. But I think that it's good because we continue a relationship with the chamber, which we've had for quite a while, and I need to continue to carry forward in one form, fashion, or another. So, but thank you, Michael.
Mr. Molina, anything?
Comments?
Okay. Mr. Chris, no other?
Nope, I'm good.
Mr. Burke? No. All right. Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute the service agreement for professional services with the Alice Chamber of Commerce to promote the Convention and Visitors Bureau industry.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated.
Sorry, I reworded it on y'all. It's the same thing, I just started a different spot.
I was waiting for it, and I'm like, oh, no, he said it. Okay, thank you, council. Agenda number 11, consider and act upon an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Alice, Texas, regulating the use and administration of hotel occupancy tax funds, imposing a penalty for improper use of such funds, and providing for said ordinance to take effect 10 days after its date of passage.
This ordinance, the old ordinance 2058, we're changing the way we do these now. We're adding a 2058A. We'll be able to find these a lot easier. We were following a different system before, and it was hard to track any changes to ordinances. But the essence on this is on the second on section 3A. The Chamber of Commerce was authorized for that first 1,800. And to keep the form the same, we still want the executive director to vet those applications and give a recommendation to the city manager. But the authorization to spend that money is going to be with the city manager now, not the executive director or the Chamber of Commerce. That's the really only one that changed is that item. If there were some other sections where it may have said had given authority to the Chamber of Commerce, that got removed, but that's the big one that changed. Everything else stayed the same past that. So we're just asking we need to change that ordinance to be able to spend those first $1,800.
Correct. Okay. Mr. Burke, any questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chris?
I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but essentially, do we even need A any longer?
No, we didn't, but I wanted to keep the ordinance in similar form. And, you know, this is one of those things where I was like, if you look back, you're like, why did we have that twice? Authorized by the city manager, authorized by the city manager. However, the second 5,000 does require something more to, in writing to give to the city clerk. So
Okay.
in a way, you know, we kept the form the same. And there's not anything else that needs to be submitted to the city clerk on the first 1,800. So that's you know, was kind of why it stayed the same, just changed the authorization on there.
And then the second one is that it's going to be submitted to the director of the Chamber of Commerce. Am I correct in that? Where was that at? Section 2B, shall evaluate. Has this been agreed to, that we're going to change the ordinance to something that we're like, has the chamber said yes to this?
No.
Because we're going to change it in this ordinance to something that could potentially be a law that now
Yeah,
we have to change it again.
Well, and if they decide not to contract with us, we would change this. We'd bring it back on it and do a revision on it. We just wanted to. We're thinking that they'll be okay. They'll be okay with the scope of work and the dollar amount given. And I did send that. I mean, the president of the chamber got it, and I talked to the executive director already about it as well.
So you have some confidence that this
Yeah.
that this will be okay.
And if they decide not to, then we'll have a 2058B.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was it.
Point of order, we're going to have to either amend the existing ordinance as to read as ordinance 2058A, or we're going to have to
Repeal and replace,
the existing ordinance as 2058A. And
which,
so, either way is appropriate, we just have to either amend
okay,
to read as 2058A or to repeal and replace the existing 2058 with 2058A.
okay, very good. Thank you for that.
Mr. Molina, any?
I have no question.
I'm going to ask your professional opinion. Gosh, sorry about that. Can't speak. On A1, do you think that we should have some kind of documentation to the city clerk up to the 18, and then just do up to, so that we eliminate A1 and then just stick the B in, like say up to 5,000, and then they submit a form still? I'm not familiar with the form that gets submitted, but do you think that would be safer and more transparent to have that first 1,800?
Well, we're still going to
Included?
have it. We're
Uh-huh.
still going to have the application and everything. It's just the B1
What's the
Or-
difference? I guess is what I want to know.
is that the first 1,800, that application comes in, and they were submitting that, sending it off, and it's like, we're going to do advertising, and the paperwork, and so it's an automatic approval by somebody that's outside of the city that we contract with. The second, the 5,000, now we need something to know what are they going to spend it on. And so typically this 1,800 is advertising money.
And that check also will still not be written to them.
Right.
It'll be written to iHeartRadio
Right.
or whoever they're doing the
But
advertising. So
I know for a fact that some people just get 18, and that's it. Never go on to the next. I know for a fact.
but it still comes
So-
to you, right?
Well, they vet it, and then it comes to him.
Well, they're going to vet everything.
Yeah.
Well, they'll vet the 18, but they won't have the approval. He has the approval. So I guess my question is, is it possible, and would it be clearer and more transparent to just say up to 5,000? And, they can make the vetting process, where the vetting process is up to 18 for them.
They're vetting
And then it
every
come-
one of them.
No,
No.
they're vetting
No?
1,800, up to, like they were doing before and approving, they're going to vet that group. And then it comes to our city manager.
Yeah, but if somebody wants $8,000 or so, that first 1,800 is going to come, that's where the applications start.
Right.
And it'll still come, we still have that paperwork, that application that we submit on the agenda, and so it has a list of what they're going to be doing and what they're trying to get done as far as their event. So that paperwork, but it stops at, we keep it on file, and we're actually doing the same thing. It's still going to the city clerk, just not by ordinance, but it's still going there. Here, we're saying we have to hand that, and we have to, record keep that if it's going to be over that 1,800.
Right.
But for practice, it happens anyway.
But-
because it goes there.
I'm just saying, if we're going to change, I'd rather it be like, because this thing has been messy.
But this says all applications shall be filed with the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce for the providing purpose, yada, 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 for the funds to be
Where do you see that?
Yeah, on the beginning.
Section 2. It says that all applications go over there. And they're not actually approving anything. They're just making a recommendation on all applications to the city manager or to the city council, correct?
Right.
So they're not actually approving anything. They're simply making a recommendation.
Yeah, the
At all
process,
levels.
the process is saying, how it runs stays the same as it was before. It's just that they don't have the authority to spend that 1,800.
Right.
It's asking for a vetting process of that, because their executive director, Juan knows what qualifies, what doesn't. And if he gives that to us, we're saying, yes, he's approving this and giving us a recommendation for approval. And so that's when we'll spend that 1,800, but they don't have approval to write a check or spend any money. And that's why it's, the process and the form and everything that's happening is staying the same on that.
There's a little bit of change here too, aside from that, is that it's going to Juan and not the board.
Right.
Director, right.
Yeah, so it's going to simply to one person in the chamber that we're writing that $1,500 check to and saying, hey, one of your executive duties or one of your professional service duties is to vet this and give us a recommendation. But no approvals, nothing is going to be done
Right.
except here in the.
And that's why I also put that under the professional services being the specific person of the executive director and not necessarily the volunteer spot of the chamber board.
Right.
So there is a slight change there, and we're pulling it back to one person that we consider the hot funds expert and saying the same recommendation that you would give to the board to write that check, now you're giving it to our city manager and our city council. Okay. Very good.
Okay. Mr. Burke?
No.
Okay.
Very good. Good.
So, Mr. Esparza, if you feel comfortable with A1, I will go with your recommendation. That's
Okay.
just my concern. I just want complete transparency. And for this to be done correctly, it is City of Alice money.
Right.
I like taking care of it. Okay, council, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion to repeal ordinance number 2058 and replace with ordinance number 2058A for the City of Alice in regards to the City of Alice, Alice, Texas, regulating the use and administration of hotel occupancy tax funds, imposing a penalty and proper use of such funds, and providing said ordinance to take effect 10 days after date of passage.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated. Thank you.
Before you execute the ordinance, we will need to insert an action paragraph after the now therefore be it ordained that existing ordinance 2058 is repealed and replaced with 2058A.
Okay,
Stated herein, and so that we can add, no problem.
Okay. Yeah.
it's good.
Good.
As stated by city attorney?
Well, I just didn't tell you, that's just your information.
Okay.
So we can stick that in there, you just don't get to sign it until we add that.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're good?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, discuss, consider, and act upon authorizing the city manager and finance director to sign a 3-year extension from Park Fowler and Company for fiscal year 2018, 2019, and 2020, and the letter of engagement for fiscal year 2018 city audit.
Yeah, Mayor, Roland Romas is out. He had somebody in his family is sick, and so Vanessa Todes is going to present this, the Deputy Finance Director.
Well, Park and Fowler, we did go out for bids about for fiscal year 2016. It was a 2-year agreement, but they are giving us the option to extend it for another 3 years, and then after that we could go out for bids also. So that's the 3-year extension. That's what that is.
Council, any questions? Mr. Burke?
No, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Crisp?
So are we entering into a 2-year contract with the possibility of an extension, or are we entering into a 3-year contract?
I believe it's a 3-year.
3-year extension. To sign a 3-year extension.
Seems like a long time. Is that normal? I mean, that seems like a long time when it comes to stuff like this.
You know, for our purposes and for in line with what they cost, it's in line. It is professional services. We also at times tend to use the same people multiple years. I know that last year there was some time constraints. It took a while to get for them to get us information, but there was also a lot of things that happened last budget that caused kind of the lateness of information getting to them as well. They did a really good job. They're really thorough. We were happy with the information they gave us, and they took a while because they asked us a lot of extra questions and went really in depth with what they needed to, and so we liked the work they did, even though they caused us to do more work. When they asked us for information, we had to send it back and forth, but we're pretty comfortable going with them, and even at a 3-year agreement. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think having done financial work for different companies, carrying over the same audit firm always makes it easier than somebody else having to step in. But the idea of the 3-year contract, I have nothing against Parker in general, or Parker and Fowler and company, but you know what I mean? Just the idea of a 3-year contract was my question. And if you're that comfortable, then I can see that. And their rates aren't that
And I
bad at
believe
all.
also with previous auditors, when we would go out for bids, the agreement was maybe at 2 or 3 years with the option to extend up to
Right.
the 5 years.
I could see them wanting that also.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to do their job. Okay, that's it.
Mr. Molina?
Roland's okay with this, I'm okay with it.
And so when did this company start with us?
I believe the first audit they prepared for us was the 2016 audit.
So they've been with us since 2016?
Actually, it's like behind, so we actually
15.
17 actually.
Oh,
Was
okay.
it 17? No, it was 16. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Probably like November 16, we signed the original agreement with them for them to audit our fiscal year 16.
Okay. And we don't have any, I don't see the RFQ that came in. It was 2 others that came in.
Yes, sorry, I didn't include those. Yes, there was I remember there was a company out of the Valley, Park and Fowler, and I can't remember who the third company was. I believe Park and Fowler was the lower, and their references were more cities close by and kind of similar size to ours. I believe they also had the city of Corpus as a reference, so we did call it and check on that.
Okay. And just to clarify, there was no City of Alice company or
Not that submitted a bid.
that submitted a bid? Okay.
And we did reach out to even past auditors, even Mr. Draper, who did our audit for many years, but he had retired. So we did try and reach out.
So y'all did attempt to reach out to Alice, City of Alice people
I
first?
believe so. I know they have a list and they just start sending them out. Well,
Okay.
Ms. Marshall did at that time.
Okay. That's just always a concern for me, that we start with City of Alice first to give.
And then I believe we also post them in the paper and things like that too.
Okay. Okay, council, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion authorizing the city manager and finance director to sign a 3-year extension to extend, I'm going to start over. Scratch that, start over. I make a motion to authorizing the city manager and the finance director to sign a 3-year extension from Parker Fowler and Company for fiscal year 2018, 2019, 2020, and a letter of engagement for the fiscal year 2018 city audit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vanessa.
I think you should
I
stand.
think you're next, right?
let me get
Number
the little-
13, here's status report. Does anybody need to take a small break? Yeah.
Okay, please.
Okay, if we can just, because Mr. Molina would like to take a little small break, so the time is 7:50. We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Molina, you can go. All right, the time is now 7:56. Thank you, and pardon us for that little recess. Agenda item number 13, here status report on November 2018 month-ending financial statements and summary of funds.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be reviewing the November 2018 financials. This first slide shows the general fund revenues. The total general fund revenues are at $854,494. Through the month of November, we should have collected 16.67%. The first one we have is the property tax. Year-to-date, we have collected for the general fund $303,727. If we were to collect evenly between the 12 months, the city should have collected $476,146. But please remember that we will receive the bulk of the property taxes in January and February. We have this other little slide that we like to show. This is the property tax that was collected through the month of November, but this is including the maintenance and operation and the interest and sinking, which is for your debt service. So through the month of November, the city has collected $414,365, and this equals about 9.7% of the total levy. Back to the general fund revenue. Next is the sales tax. Through the month of November, the city has not collected sales tax for this fiscal year. Next month, we will reflect the October payment. And we actually did receive it, which was $574,225. But that will be included in your December financials. And the payment was actually about $45,000 over the budget. For occupational and mixed beverage tax, the year-to-date budget is $6,783. The city has only collected $1,243, which is only 3%. But this is due to the mixed beverage being collected quarterly. Some of these are quarterly. That's what kind of hurts us. Next is the franchise license and permits. Year-to-date budget is $165,371. Year-to-date, the city has collected $62,160, and this is due to cable, telephone, and gas franchise fees being collected quarterly and not monthly. The electric is the only one that we actually receive monthly. Next, we have the intergovernmental. Year-to-date budget should be at $12,950, but year-to-date, the city has collected $8,333, which is about 11%. Charges for services, year-to-date budget should be at $4,008 through the month of November. Year-to-date, we've collected $5,784. Fines and forfeit, year-to-date budget should be at $50,597, but the city's collected $87,717. Next, we have the miscellaneous revenue. The year-to-date budget should be at $11,178. Year-to-date, the city has collected $56,648. This is mainly due to the rent for the Armory. They did pay a couple of months in advance, so that's why it's more than it would have been. And also this is due to interest revenue. Interfund transfers year-to-date budget is $328,883, and that is exactly what's been collected because it's really just journal entries moving it. Do we have any questions on the general fund?
Council, any questions?
Well, I guess I do. All these ones that are low, it's kind of, we're on point. So,
Yes.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's, well, Mike and I talked about the other day. It's hard because some of these things, we just divide by 12.
That's what I mean. It's if you were to divide it evenly, but nothing is really perfect and evenly. Like I said, the property tax, you know, we're going to receive the bulk of it in January and February, and then you'll see it, the payments come in very small, but you've already reached 80% of your budget. Sales tax, we're always 2 months behind.
Yeah, like that miscellaneous revenue, it's high, but every month it's going to start evening
Yeah.
out where it's going to be at the end of the
time.
year, it'll catch up because we did get a prepayment of a few, how many months?
I think it was 6 months.
6 month prepayment on a lease.
And my question necessarily isn't that, because I understand that. My statement or my question is like, when we look down and we see 80%, or when we see 5%, are we really that far off of where we expected to be, or versus what we're saying we're off just by dividing by 12? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you look at it right now, are where we should be? Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, like with the property tax one that I showed y'all, I don't have it on there. We just showed the slide, the graph, but we're almost in target with every year. About this time, we're at 9%. Yeah.
Okay. And that was a point that you and I talked
Yeah.
about, and we've kind of figured this out. But when those numbers go out to the general public, it looks bad, but we're not in bad shape.
Yeah.
And we're not in great shape in some of the other things either.
Well, on some of them, when you would look at revenue, it would be something like the miscellaneous revenue to the other side, the ones that pay yearly at the end of the year or something like that, where we won't get caught up until the last part of the fiscal year, but or when we have an example that you and I talked about, revenue at the multi-use, we're not going to have a lot of revenue toward the end when it's off season, but is that in line with where we're expected to be? So, on some of those, we know what the numbers are, but we are just dividing by 12 to be able to process a financial statement. But if we wanted to break it down further on some of those that need, we can show how we're figuring that month by month based on history.
Yeah.
And
that might
that's
be
where
something.
you show, are we on target with those
Yeah.
numbers?
Well, especially when they're drastically different. You know what I mean? Just when they're drastically different. Are we on point where we should be with history or with the predictions made for the budget? I'm not saying to try to figure it out all right now, but the idea of saying we're at 0%, you did make a statement, oh yeah, we're 2 months behind. We kind of push that point over and over again. But the general public saying, oh, they've got no revenue for sales tax. We know this is exactly like you already did. We know we're going to be here right now. We budgeted. We know where we are.
And maybe what we could do also is just give a comparison where we were last year.
Yeah, I think something like that, just to have a reference, because this is very vague, and it's not, we understand it, but the general public, it's a little.
Month to date from last year also.
And again, on the drastic ones, I don't think we need to go into detail on every single one of them, but on the ones that are drastic, the big differences.
But I think to keep it uniform, if we could just do for all across the board, and that way it's uniform, and that way because sometimes a little bit here, why are we really off, even if it's $5,000,
And expenses, you're already doing that across the bottom here. Right. You're already saying, we're 30% over because of the one-time payment for the software at the library or whatever, insurance payments. But now the revenue side might not be a bad idea either. All right, I'm done with that for now.
Thank you. Mr. Burke, any questions?
No.
Mr. Molina? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crisp.
Right.
My same sentiment with Mr. Crisp, because that to me is just like.
The expenses, this is just, for the general fund, we've expensed $1,889,000 and, I'm sorry, $1,889,808, which is about 15%. There was just a few that were a little bit over. The general service, that one, like you mentioned, that's the insurance payment. Finance, we have our software payment, and then we pay quarterly to the appraisal district. Library was a little bit over due to some upfront costs. Those were the only really major ones.
What was the libraries?
They had some building and copier supplies that they purchased, and it kind of took up their budget at the beginning of the year and not spaced out throughout the year.
Council, any questions? Mr. Burke?
No.
Mr. Crisp?
Interfunds transfers, you say it's just a journal entry. Why are we low on that one?
That one is, oh, I remember because Mr. Damos asked me. Remember when we did the sales tax, we were going to do like $10,000 for the street improvement fund, $10,000 for the depreciation fund. So we really haven't received an October sales tax in our books yet. So once we receive that, then you'll see where we were waiting to make sure that we received at least the 529 to be making those transfers. So once we get that, then you'll start to see where it starts to
catch up. Okay.
Mr. Crisp?
That's it.
Mr. Molina?
No questions.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
next?
Next, we're just going to do just a little summary of all the funds. The general fund had a loss of $1,035,314, but like I said, this does not reflect 2 months of sales tax, and the property tax is not a full amount that it should be, but it will be coming soon. The solid waste fund does show a surplus of $136,206. Utility fund also for the moment does show a surplus of $76,304. The airport fund shows a loss of $15,383. This does include the transfer from the general fund. The golf course fund shows a surplus of $3,696. This also includes a transfer from general fund. The hotel occupancy tax fund shows a loss of $23,166, but this is another one where the revenue is collected quarterly. And the last one is the multi-use complex. We do show a loss of $16,106, and this also includes the transfer from the general fund.
Council, any questions? Mr. Molina?
Do you know the amount that y'all transferred, or we transferred for the multi-use complex?
That we set aside for monthly? I can look that up. Here, let me see real quick. I thought I had it. I believe we're transferring, let me double check.
Is it
Is it 25,000 per month?
it's
Let
the
me see.
51,040 bucks divided by 2, correct?
I believe it's 25,519 that we're transferring per month to the multi-use center.
25 what now?
25,520.
Yeah,
A month?
25,520.
Yes.
Now, can you reiterate, sorry, Mr. Molina, did you have?
No,
another?
go ahead.
Was there a legal reason, Mr. Lemon, why we couldn't do the actual? I know we've discussed this before, but I just hate that where we include the, the interfund transfer, and we don't have like a clear, like how really much of a loss is it, with, like if we did without the fund. Could we do that here, or was there a legal reason why we couldn't?
No, as far as their bookkeeping goes, they can bookkeep it in that fashion. As far as you can't carry a loss from one budget to the next, and that you've got to pay.
Right.
City manager has to present. Council has to adopt a budget to take care of all expenses and arguably to zero out their expenses from the
Right.
prior year. Really, that's the only thing.
Just for the year, right? For the state
For-
purposes.
For that year. And
But
so,
If you wanted to figure out, like on the actual financials, page 8 of 11,
8 of 11.
Yeah.
that
sorry,
interfund transfer, that $51,040, you could just,
Yeah, but that's so little, Vanessa.
well, that's just year to date. That's just for the first 2 months.
But I'm
So-
saying, like, could we do like this right here, like this chart right here, and tell us the actual number?
Oh.
No, we cannot
No, of the actual number of,
without the interfund transfer.
okay.
So see, like, the multi-use, for example, would be 25 plus 16. What's that, guys?
No, it's 51 is what we've transferred so far.
For the month?
No, that's not
2
for the
months.
month, that's for this whole season.
So then we would add 51 plus 16.
Yes,
And that would give us a true
true, yes.
loss, right?
Yes.
And then for the,
So can we get a number? So 51 what, Mr. Crisp?
50
I'll just ballpark, I guess,
51,040.
40 plus 16, right? Would that be correct? 16,106?
Yep.
So that to show, instead of 16,106, to show 67,146. Could we legally do that just for
Yeah,
our
because that's
purposes
just for our
here?
purposes here.
for your all's
Yeah?
purposes, for your
Could
all's
maybe just,
I think that would be
could
more-
keep doing it, but I could,
Like, give us maybe another?
Another line.
Right, Mr. Molina? Do you think that would, because like I want to see a total loss. Because that doesn't look bad, 16 or 15 or, whatever. But when we see a real number like 67,146, it looks different.
I've always had an issue with this graph.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of.
You've always.
Given Roland a hard time. He's my buddy and everything, but I know he's just doing what he's supposed to do or told, whatever. But I've always had a problem with it because, like, when I see revenue for the multi-use complex, and I'm thinking, okay, you know, that's a lot of revenue. You know what I mean?
And it's across the board.
And
Right.
Because it's the airport.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt,
Golf
I
course.
apologize, but what he started to do is the actual numbers. What he started to do, Mr. Molina or Councilman Molina, what he started to do is he started to record it in the actual numbers. He just didn't give it a separate graph
Right.
space or bar graph or whatever we're calling it.
Right.
And so he started to record it in those regards for you in the actual numbers. And I don't know if he's got it recorded here, broken out in these numbers.
And in that little chart, the little tiny itty bitty,
I think
like
it's got it.
minuscule numbers, yeah, it's there. But I mean, I'd really like this chart because the general public can see this and see the true. I agree with Mr. Molina. It's just every month it's like, well, what is it really? So if we had a different, another box, another column, another row.
And not just for the multi-use,
Yeah, all across the board.
But any department
'Cause the
that's getting
airport
interfund
gets-
transfers is very misleading to.
Because the airport 2 is 15,383. Hotel occupancy, this is one that I like to keep my eye on, 23,166. And I understand there's reasons, but if we do the full, because if this gets out of hand, to me, this isn't a clear, kind of just like staff where it's hard for them to, after one meeting and then another meeting. So same with us, like after one meeting, you kind of go back and, well, what was it last time? Whereas here, if we can have a true, and I call it a true number because it truly is a true number. To the
Well,
citizens
but-
with our tax money, it's a true number of what we're losing.
Because
The
let's,
51,000 is year-to-date what we're thinking the loss is going to be, though.
Right.
We're looking at 16,000 right now, but that's because it is the off-peak. But that number, it should start making money toward the,
Right.
in the summer, it'll be making money, but it'll have more revenues than expenses,
I was going
should
to say, is it?
But
in 3 months, it
our,
does break even.
yeah, our number, we're budgeting the $306,000 loss. Okay, so when we set the budget, we set it knowing, hey, this is what we think it is going to lose.
Yeah.
But that includes, we also took the 161 in the intergovernmental transfers. So we're
Right.
transferring out for administration to make it true number of what it really takes to run that. Because if we didn't have the interfund transfer, you wouldn't have to, the interfund transfer out, you wouldn't have to budget the $306,000, but that wouldn't be a true number.
Right.
So we have that there, but what we look at is if you just look at every month, if we take out for the purposes of what these funds are losing on these enterprise funds, and not all of them are losing, but the multi-use and the golf course didn't, but it had, we budgeted on the golf course as well, right?
All three of these
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
interfund transfers.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
let's step away from, because everybody sees it as a very sensitive subject. Let's step away from the multi-use and let's jump over to the airport fund. The airport fund here already shows a $15,000 loss, right? But we've also transferred over $9,000. So in all truth, we're $22,000 in the hole with the airport.
But see, it doesn't compare to the 51,000.
I know, but I'm just trying to give
Yeah.
the
No,
walking.
and that's a true statement. That's a good political statement.
Yeah.
To say we're not picking on any one. It's just it needs to be true and showy.
Because the golf course shows a positive 3,000 or 3,600, but
But there is an interfund.
but there's an
transfer.
interfund transfer in there of
Yeah.
like 18,000, so we're at a $15,000 loss. So
And
there's numbers there that kind of represent true figures, but then again, we have to be realistic on the other end too. We need to show the transfers going into the general fund because we're taking money out of solid waste and utility to fund our general fund also.
Right.
Right.
So there's a lot going on here that isn't
But this-
displayed of
this
actual
isn't,
dollar
to me,
amounts.
true and accurate. I don't think so.
Well, but I would say this.
It is for the budget at
we-
the end of the year.
In accordance with the
Budgeted?
budget,
Yeah.
yes.
We budgeted and everybody knows that this is the loss that it's going to incur. Right now, we're just telling you guys how it's looking toward the budget.
Yeah.
But if you want, what we can do is we would remove from these enterprise funds the interfund transfer, the transfer in, not the out, because that's the true number that we're saying it takes to run these funds.
Correct.
Okay,
That's
so,
right.
but we would take take out the interfund transfer,
In.
and we could have that on the bottom of this to show this is what it really looks like.
Yeah.
But when we're presenting financial statements, the true accurate financial statement is this, because we budgeted the loss already, and we had that discussion at the time when it's adopted. So there is a loss, everybody knows, and if you look at any of these numbers, when you look at interfund transfer year-to-date, we're giving the airport giving them $9,000 already, or let's just look at the whole year. 54,000 is what we're figuring we're gonna have to subsidize that, and the golf course 112, and the multi-use 306.
Right.
That is the true number. But if we can work on a graph, we can certainly remove it or have a second graph showing without
Two,
the
like one
yeah.
budgeted. and
without the
then-
transfers out.
Yeah.
And then month to month, we can
Yeah.
see it. But we know that it should be, right now, it should be well, it'll be more of a minus 16, it'll be minus 67.
Yeah.
And next month, and then that'll start getting lower
Mm-hmm.
toward the end. And it should, if we're accurate with what we have at the end of the year, it should be minus 306.
Mm-hmm.
And the golf course should be minus 112.
So then it would be a monthly without the interfund transfers.
Yeah. And we can
Because
show
this is- Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea to do, yeah.
I just,
So we can
to me,
remember,
it's not
it's good for
clear.
us to remember every month
Yeah,
what we're doing on those.
yeah.
Yeah.
And is it really, I mean, are we lacking somewhere? Is there something more we need to do? Because sometimes you look at this, you're like, yeah, I mean, it's a cost of living for
Right.
Well, and
whatever.
remember
but-
this, the multi-use center also had to pay a good portion of the insurance at the beginning of the year.
Right. Which is theirs. I mean,
Yes.
that it belongs to them. I think it just needs to be accurate. And not that it's not, Miss Vanessa. We know it. We understand. But I want,
See a different picture of it.
Yeah.
From
I mean,
without the,
we have some high school kids that are really asking questions. I've had several approach me, and I'd like to, I had to do this, okay, well, we're really here, and they're like, what? That, you're lying then. It's not, yeah, and that's what it feels like. But we understand for the state we have to do certain things. But in all reality, we really should be very clear about the real loss, or because ultimately our general fund, the interfund transfers come out of the general fund, and the general fund is our piggy bank. That's the city's money that, if that goes low, then, so,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Molina. I'm sure you didn't mean to just
Yeah, sorry,
go
we
into
spun
so
out there.
much.
No, I mean, every time that, that this comes up, I just,
Yeah.
I see that one bar graph and I think, well, it should be opposite, like one should actually be negative all the way
Yeah.
down, just because I know, but, when it's actually portrayed to the public, and this is not political, but just the way, any commenter looks at it, they're like, oh, wow, it's, whatever, and.
It's doing better than it is.
And we've had people say it is making money,
But the
but
truth
it's
of the
not.
matter is, that,
so-
hey, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to say, so, and every year, we just wipe it clean and start over again,
Right. So it's fresh and clean again.
Sorry, yeah.
and for.
Good job, Vanessa, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, from our
Rolling.
standpoint, this is a reflection of, the financial statement is a reflection of what we budgeted.
Right.
And what is spent, and that's the whole number that we
Mm-hmm.
have. So it's, this is accurate,
yeah.
but we want to do.
Right.
And you're right, it'd be good to have the second
And
chart
it's not,
to
I mean,
show.
it's not pretty, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just-
I
For
agree.
what you were told to present and what you are presenting, you are presenting it properly. I think all we're doing now is
No, that's
asking for
fine.
more information. So it's displayed a little bit different. And we're not saying that anything has been done. It's just a matter of,
not
now we want to see
saying
something
that,
else.
Mr.
Now
Vanessa.
no, but I'm just saying, I just don't want anybody to think that out there at all.
No,
I
nobody
understand, you
thinks
just want to
that.
see it a
She's
different way,
good.
just like, we started doing the property tax one
Yeah.
a few years ago, and,
Right.
just different ideas,
Yeah.
we can just make something
Be better.
new. Yes.
Yeah. And so that we're completely transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we're supposed to be.
Awesome.
Council, any other questions or recommendations, additions? No?
No.
Mr. Burke, you're good? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vanessa, so much
Thank you, Vanessa.
for your accurate work, and we know you're accurate.
Good job.
All right. 14, authorization to submit a Texas intrastate fire mutual aid system Grant application for up to $12,500. Authorization for the city manager and/or mayor to execute a grant contract and all related documents if funds are awarded.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather as well. But this agenda item is permission to apply for a $12,500 grant for Texas Intrastate Fire Mutual Aid System. And what that is it's a statewide mutual aid system that was authorized by the Texas legislature. And there are two grant programs within this system. And one of the grant programs is for training grants, and the other grant program is for equipment and fire trucks. Now, the one we're asking for permission to apply for tonight is the training grant program, and we're asking for the maximum amount, which is $12,500. This grant is available to all fire departments in the state, specifically to departments with 21 or more professional or paid firefighters. So we fall into that. The only catch is that we're competing with Houston, Dallas, every other fire department that has 21 or more firefighters, and that's quite a few of them. So unfortunately, the grant, and prior to the meeting, I reached out to the administrators of the grant, which is the Texas Forest Service, and advised them of our intent to apply for a training grant application, and they told me that the funds are not available anymore this year, but encouraged us to apply anyway. If funds are not expended by one of the other agencies, it goes back into a pool of funds and can get dispersed out on an as-needed basis. So I don't want to get your hopes up and say we're going to get $12,500 grant. I wanted to be upfront with that and let you guys know that the money's not there right now, but it could be throughout the rest of the year, so we want permission to apply for that. So if it does become available, we can get some of that money reimbursed back to us.
Very good, Chief. Mr. Burke, any questions?
No question.
Mr. Crisp?
No, thank you.
Mr. Molina?
No, ma'am. No questions.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion to authorize for the submittal of a Texas intrastate fire mutual aid system grant application for up to $12,500, authorizing the city manager and the mayor to execute a grant contract and all related documents if funds are awarded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion stands as stated.
My glasses.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you.
Doing a great job. Number 15, adjourn and or consider and act upon adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The time is 8:24. We would like to announce that Miss Councilwoman Cynthia Carrasco is in stable condition and doing well. If we will just keep her in our prayers, thoughts, and send her good vibes. This meeting is now adjourned. The time is 8:24. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.